Good evening. Welcome, everybody. It is Thursday night. It's 8 o'clock, and it is time for another installment of the Get Off My Lawn podcast. My name is John, and as always, I am your host. You're stuck with me. It's my show. That's how that works. We've got we're going to have some fun tonight, but as absurd as this topic is, and the things that we're going to bring up, it's also very, very serious too. And we'll kind of get into the difference between the two as we go along here. But real quick, a couple things that I want to mention. If you watch the ticker scrolling across the bottom there, we want to welcome you to the live chat if you're joining us live. And so make sure you're dropping those comments out there, because if you're not commenting, we cannot see you, and we want to know that you're there. We want to hear read what you have to say. That's why I always say this is so much better than TV or radio, because the live streams here on the internet, you can actually chat, you can comment, we can see those things, we can have a real-time conversation with you. And unlike the news, you can scream at whoever it is. If you watch CNN, most of the anchors are leaving because they're getting fired. But you can scream at Tucker Carlson or whoever it is loud as you want. He's not going to hear you. But and you can scream at us as loud as you want too. We're not going to hear you, but you can type and we can read it and we can actually converse. So make sure you're leaving those comments out there in the chat. If you know somebody that needs to see this, please go ahead and hit that share button and send it to everybody. We're still blocked right now from going live on Facebook, so we're only reaching people via YouTube as far as the live goes. I am downloading these and then reposting them onto Facebook, but the Facebook people don't get to join us live. So make sure you're letting them know that we are doing this and that they should join in on the conversation. A lot of people are already out there. So also, we want to mention that we are a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can find this great show. We are the best show that nobody's watching, is what I like to say. So make sure you're helping us increase that circulation. But go to the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the good podcasts. You can get this one and so many that are awesome on there. And if I try to list them, I'm going to leave out half of them. So just go check it out, sdrn.us. And but make sure you wait till this is over. Don't do it while we're live. You got to comment. You got to be in the conversation. Okay, I think that we're just going to kind of jump in. We don't have any sponsors yet. If you want to sponsor the show, be part of this, or you know somebody that might, then share this with them and let them see what exactly it is that we do. And we are definitely looking for some sponsors for this season to help us keep going, and not only keep things on the air, but also equipment, all that kind of stuff. So we are going to introduce everybody real quick and give everybody a chance to at least say hello. And then before everybody leaves, I will give you all a chance to drop any shameless plugs and places that people can find you. So real quick here, first and foremost, I want to again introduce my my fully semi-official co-host. So we've got Defense Dad in the house. What's up, sir?
Hey.
Glad to have you. I didn't know if you were going to make it on time or not tonight. I know you had the school function, so glad to have you.
Well, pro tip, in the middle of COVID, a kid's school band concert lasts 17 minutes.
Beautiful. A lot of us wish those all lasted 17 minutes, and we love hearing them play, but sometimes it gets a little long. So,
yep.
Okay. A few other people we've got joining us tonight. We've got coming to us from our neighbors to the north, South Dakota. We've got Paul Lathrop from the Daily Bullet, the Polite Society podcast, Second Amendment Foundation. What have I left out, Paul?
That's about it.
All right. Not stripping down to his tidy whities. Paul can do all kinds of cool stuff with his screen that I can't do on mine. Paul is a producer extraordinaire. If you watched any of AmCon this year, then that was his handiwork, bringing that all live to the masses. Also, we've got coming to us from Ohio, right? We've got Amanda Suffolcool in the house. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Glad to have you along. We've got, let's see. I think this is your first time ever joining us on the podcast, isn't it? We have got Dan Wass, author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, and Loaded Mike, right?
Right. Thanks. Yep. Great to be part of the gang tonight.
Glad to have you along on your inaugural voyage. I almost said the rundown, but that's some other yahoos that we don't want to associate with those guys. Wait a minute. We've got one of them here. Mike Piwarski is in the house, and he's on the rundown along with a whole bunch of other stuff. But
Lots of stuff.
You joined us a while back.
Rush Chairman, Delta Tau Chi, damn glad to meet you.
Right. Good deal. We're going to call you Otter from now on just because of that. Don't cross me or you get to be Flounder. And then we've got a couple of our usual suspects, and joining us first from an undisclosed location deep underground, somewhere near, possibly past the Kansas border. We don't know how far he tunneled, but we've got Pat in a bunker. How are you?
I am doing great, sir.
You betcha. You sound like you're in a bunker. We're gonna get that fixed. He's gonna upgrade his AV stuff here before long. But for now, glad to have you along. And then last but certainly not least, we have got everybody's favorite tactical teacher, also coming to us from the capital city of Lincoln, Nebraska, Travis P11.
Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Glad to have you along. For the record, we talked about this a little bit before we went on air.
Yes.
If you ever hear Paul or me or anybody refer to the Central Time Zone as the only time zone that matters because we're in the center of it all, that is not mine. I did not coin that. That is a Travis P11 original.
That's right.
That's from him. I just want to give credit.
It's in the middle. It's in the middle. It's in the center.
Right.
Everything good at the center is at the center. You know,
they're going to put it in the middle of
Rome, Madrid.
Okay, enough about that. I've got a whole list of things, but I want to be able to. I don't think we're going to take the time and drag this out and necessarily go all the way around the horn unless there's somebody that we have too many people trying to talk all at once, you know. Shoot, I've got to grab my right list here. What I want to get into tonight is common sense laws. Now, we had a whole list earlier in the year after the presidential inauguration. One of the first things Joe Biden did was put out a whole list of he called them common sense gun laws that he wanted to either have Congress pass or do through executive actions, whatever it was. But of course, those of us that ever actually read those, we understand that they're feel-good things, and they might look great on paper, and they might say, hey, I did something, but they don't actually do anything to keep people safe. So I want to have a discussion. And again, I know I keep saying that we're going to be serious, but we're going to be crazy and nuts and absurd, because anybody who takes this halfway seriously, I mean, you can see how absurd it's really going to get as we go along, but we're going to have some fun with this. But I want to just cover the notion of how if we actually passed laws that really would keep people safe, well, we couldn't pass them. Our Constitution wouldn't allow most of it. But I just want all of us to kind of to bring to the table a few ideas of things that would actually keep people safe. One of the things that, as I get my phone to light up here, one of the things that I have thought about as far as keeping people safe, and again, these are common sense laws, right? That would work to really reduce not only crime but just accidents. First and foremost, we need to pass a law. We govern every motor vehicle at 30 miles an hour, because if you cannot drive faster than 30, you've got reaction time. It's almost impossible to hydroplane at that speed. Even on slick, icy roads like we may have in Nebraska and South Dakota here this weekend, at 30 miles an hour, it's a lot easier to avoid accidents and everything else, and stop when it's
easier, John, but it's not impossible. You need to limit them to 10 miles an hour. That way, your average person can still outrun the car.
Well, what if we did this? What if we made it 10 miles an hour, but then we sold the privilege back to the public, and with a special permit, you could go up to 30. But if you got caught doing 11 without that permit, then you would lose your driving privileges. We could do something like that.
Well, and with the proper gas, brake, and steering wheel control, you can hydroplane at 30 miles an hour. It's quite fun. I've been told. So.
You also need a good amount of horsepower.
That's not going to work, you guys. That's not going to work. 10 miles an hour isn't going to work. What about speed bumps? You can only go 5 miles an hour over a speed bump. Maybe we should just limit it to 5. So in case you go over a speed bump, there are no issues there.
The speed bumps stay in place. You still have to slow down to 5 miles an hour. Those are in place to keep those hooligans from tearing through the neighborhood at 12 miles an hour. We can't be having it. We have no children at play. The sign said so.
John, we gotta have background checks on cars because just as many key people are killed by cars as firearms. So we gotta have background checks. So you got a 7-day wait until your paper's clear before you can take delivery of that vehicle.
Well, but
last time I checked, there's no background checks on cars, and you're gonna start having straw purchases. I'm gonna buy a car and give it to a guy in Iowa.
The kind of car you can buy is highly regulated.
It's gotta have a fully semi-automatic
transmission. You can't have a high capacity car. No, you can't hold more than
4 cylinders. You can have space for 8, but only 4 cylinders. Yeah,
because kids joyride otherwise. If you put
no. Every car is equipped with a Briggs & Stratton 12 horsepower motor. That way, it can only go 5 miles per hour, and it has a tank limited to only 2 gallons of gasoline. So that way, if you do catch on fire, you do not cause property destruction, so that way the fire department can get there on time, so that way they can put out the fires, that way no property damage is done.
We will ban high-capacity gas tanks because nobody needs a 30-gallon gas tank. That's
1.5 gallons in California.
And don't forget the shipping regulations. 51% minimum of the parts in the car have to be manufactured in the United States to satisfy import regulations.
Right.
Okay, so
wow, we really went off the rails on that one.
No, I was just.
Oh, there's no rails tonight.
I can tell. Everybody gets it. This is going to be fun because you all totally understand what I'm shooting for tonight in this conversation. So I've got a list of things, but you know what? We've got some time before everybody has. We've got a few people that have to duck out a little early. So, and I know that Paul and Amanda have early mornings, so we will let the lady go first. And Amanda, if you had some common sense laws that that you would like to see passed to keep everybody safe, what would they be?
Okay, well, recently we had a gal slip, trip, and fall in the parking lot because she just wasn't padded sufficiently. Broke her leg. It was really bad. So have you guys seen those giant plastic human bubbles that you can bounce around in?
Yeah.
I think that if the temperature is less than 30 degrees, so you're in the freezing zone, that in order to go out of your house or out of your workplace or out of the store, you need to be wearing one of those bubbles. So in case you trip or slip or fall or have an incident in the parking lot, that you bounce.
I already bounce. We need to have a weight exemption. After a certain number of pounds, you don't need the bubble anymore.
Oh.
Because I don't even know if they make a bubble in my size.
They do. They got them on wish.com.
Oh.
You can get an 80% bubble that you can finish on your own too.
On wish.com doesn't mean it's actually 5X.
You can get 80% bubble.
Wish.com 5X is like a medium in American.
Slim cut. Slim cut.
Don't ask how I know. Asking for a friend. So no, that's a great. I like that one. That's an amazing law. We need to have bubbles on people. I honestly, I would go the other way. I think that we should just outlaw warning labels altogether. And no, it wouldn't keep people safe, but within about 3 generations, most of the stupid would be bred out. So
Ew.
Darwin would kick in and survival of the smartest, right? So after about 3 generations, there wouldn't really be stupid people anymore if we just didn't have warning labels to keep them safe and to keep them alive. So I've said that many times. Paul, I know that you're going to be taken off before too much longer too, so I want to give you a chance to throw out some good common sense laws.
Well, this is going to be extremely unpopular, but I honestly believe this. We've got the technology. It would be super easy to do. Make it a law that if a cell phone detects movement, it locks up so nobody is able to text and drive, period.
Absolutely. That really would keep a lot of people safe. And I'm guilty myself sometimes of not so much the texting, but just fiddling around finding the right show on YouTube to listen to next in the background.
Oh, that scared me for a minute.
On YouTube. Come on now.
Not OnlyFans.
No, the fact that you are looking at a show while you're driving. That was where I was.
We never
But
do that.
The steering Barca Lounger
I
thing.
know a lot of you are plagued with ads during these, and I'm not, because I pay for the used to be Google Play Music, but now it's the what is it? YouTube Music subscription
YouTube Red.
page into, but it comes with YouTube Red, which means I get ad-free viewing and I can actually listen, let it play in the background without having it on the screen. So I don't deal with, even though I'm on the audio version of the podcast, I generally am not using one of those. I'm usually listening to everything through YouTube just because it's right there. It's easy. And some of it's not on audio, but that's normally if I'm in the car and I've got something going, it's something like that. I'm just not watching it. I'm just listening. So that's my story.
Sure, officer. That's
And I'm
my
sticking to
story.
Yep. My screen was off. No, that's a really great one. Either of you two have anything else that you wanted to throw out there before you have to take off tonight?
No, I'm good for a little bit.
All right. Who else has something?
I personally don't think I should be forced to wear deodorant because there's no science that shows it really does any good. It really just protects me from you because that way you don't get too close to me.
How are you forced to wear deodorant? There's not a law saying that you have to. I don't know.
Oh, it's a mandate, not a law. I'm sorry.
I don't know what you guys have in Lincoln, but nowhere in free Nebraska are you required to wear deodorant.
No,
Trust me.
It's not a mandate. It's a woman date, or the man doesn't get a date.
More of a no date. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
wait, I'm not wasn't done though. If you try to force me to wear it in your store, I should be okay to give you a 20-minute lecture as to why it really doesn't do anything to protect someone. So I shouldn't have to do it.
And you give the lecture like this.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
More like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that could be. Now, I was gonna say I don't want to take any shots here, but well, I shouldn't.
I'll
say
take
that
a shot.
because I totally do. We're not doing shots. But Defense Dad, I don't know if there's any correlation. We know that correlation doesn't mean causation. But if you refuse to wear deodorant and you're also single, I'm kind of thinking those two may not change unless, one of those is going to have to change and then the other one probably will too.
Man, stop shooting holes in my theory. That's not fair.
I'm just saying, if you start wearing deodorant, you may not be single.
Tested a couple times at least.
If by some strange chance you find that special person that doesn't need you, that wants to date you anyway, that's probably after you're not single. I bet that it's one of the things that happens is you get coerced into wearing deodorant. I'm just predicting. That's all.
It's a vicious cycle.
The things we do for love. Also, we're not here to play matchmaker, but ladies, if you are single, so is Defense Dad. He's a Pisces. He likes long walks on the beach, pina coladas, and getting caught in the rain.
I like 100-yard walks at the gun range.
Hey, John, what am I? Chopped liver? I'm a Pisces too, and I like long walks on the beach. And
we haven't got to you yet.
I'm actually a Capricorn, so there we go.
I'm taken, ladies, so
Me too. I'm sorry. Sorry to let you down gently, but I am sorry. Okay, so other common sense laws that would actually keep people safe, even if they wouldn't go over. Dan or Mike, you guys have been patiently waiting your turns.
I do have one that kind of piggybacks off Amanda's. According to the Sacramento Jury Attorney's blog, there are over 1 million falls every year, and over 12,000 people die in stairway falls. So, I've been lobbying in Congress for years for stairway harnesses. So, in other words, in order to walk up or down a stairway, you must wear a government-approved and mandated harness. That's what I've been working on. So.
Something similar to what you wear in a tree stand when you're deer hunting.
Maybe, yeah, something like that. It's got to be approved by Joe Biden, though.
Mhm.
Approved by Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Not just any government entity, but
specifically Joe.
Okay.
Well, because he's got the most experience with falling down.
Now he did say that that Fauci's the real president. So do we need Biden to approve it, or does the CDC have to step in here?
Well, that's
not the NIH or whatever it is that Fauci's part of.
That's a good point. I don't know. We'll have to talk to Nancy Pelosi about that.
Okay. Will I still be able to use a trebuchet to get to the 5th floor, though? I mean,
a what?
Trebuchet.
The new Sonic ones.
Catapult.
Yeah.
I can think of a lot of people that are in elected positions that I would like to use a trebuchet to get them at least to the 5th floor, but I'd like to see how many floors we could get them to. But I'm not naming names because I don't want this to be taken off the air.
Well, I know where there's one that has 600 pounds worth of counterweight on it. So
we go.
I would like to expand this. So some places should be forced to put in a slide with a rubber ball pit at the bottom to avoid people falling down altogether, because they can land safety in the soft rubber foam or balls.
Or a fire pole would also be acceptable,
now,
I think.
There are going to be people that take that as a stripper's pole. Come on now.
Okay, Paul, we already established you're not stripping down to your tidy whities. This is not the place for you to make a couple extra dollars.
But if you're going to have the pole, though, you got to have some sort of safety harness like he was talking, because you just can't let people free fall.
No. Exactly.
I'm picturing bungee cords.
Just when you think you're at the bottom, zing!
There you go.
Damn, I'm going to write this down.
Even if it's not a law or a mandate, I mean, I think we just found our next business venture. We could put like an indoor adult playground with a slide with a ball pit and a fire pole with a harness and bungee cords to where it's like a Johnny Jumper, but for grown-ups.
There you go.
Foam bodysuits, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the inflatable bubbles, you know, and you could actually just do like the sumo wrestling and stuff, or pinball. You could run through a pinball course. That'd be sweet.
That would be fun.
Have bottles of beer at the bottom. You got to jump with enough force so you stretch the bungee cord. You can reach over and grab a beer at the very bottom of the swing. As you come up, take a drink as you're going back up.
Yep.
It's kind of like an adult version of Candyland.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Or what was it?
Shoots and ladders.
Yeah.
There you
go. There's got to be a way to implement that somewhere. Can you imagine the waiver? How many pages the waiver would be?
I'm a redneck. All you have to do is give me some nylon straps, a little bit of baling wire, and some surgical tubing, and I'm sure I could come up with something fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I think this is the quietest Mike Piwowarski has been in like months.
It's such a great group. I really try to make an effort not to step on anybody. Like when I'm used to doing, the one-on-one shows, and then Paul and I did one earlier today. So I like to listen because you guys are amazing. So everybody.
Well, you're actually up next. So do you have any,
all right. Well, there we go.
Good contributions? Go ahead, cut loose.
Yeah, it's actually an older mandate. We throw off our British oppressors for years now, and we've mandated this before, but they're still out there. You get them in big cities and tourist centers. It's the double decker buses, those tourist buses. And we got to get rid of them because no place else can you get in a car accident and fall down the stairs at the same time. So they've just got to go. They've got to go.
Well, Okay, I don't know if you've ever been to Nebraska, but I'm pretty sure that we've got some people out here that could get into a car accident and fall downstairs.
And fall down the stairs. Well, see,
Even
they've
without a
got to
bus.
go. They've got to go. We have to ban
I'm
them.
just saying.
I
But
mean,
I've never
there's
been
some
to my house before.
there's some
talented.
sketchy party buses out there, so it can be done.
Oh yes, don't get me started on party buses. We see those all the time. Quick public service announcement, kids. If you're going to hire a party bus in the state of Nebraska, make sure you get one that's actually licensed by the Public Service Commission, because otherwise, if they do wreck it and you guys do fall down the stairs, you're not covered by insurance, and you're going to really wish you had gone with a reputable company. That's all I'm going to say about that. We'll move right along. Okay. Also, if anybody wants to buy a party bus, I know where there's one for sale. Okay, so here's another one that I want to throw out. And Paul, I'm not trying to step on toes. Anybody else that this may or may not step on toes as well. We all have heard that loud pipes save lives, right? Anybody that's ridden or been around a motorcycle has heard this one, that loud pipes save lives. I say that loud pipes are not enough. And the only way to safely make motorcycles or to make motorcycles safe is we're going to outlaw them completely. No motorcycles, because they are death traps. And so for the sake of everybody involved, you can't ride a motorcycle, because it's not if you dump it, it's when and whether or not you die. So helmet laws don't matter, because motorcycles will just be gone. It would, just imagine how many lives would be saved every year. And not only that, but ER visits, how many doctors' time would be saved by not having to scoop brains up into a helmet and carry them into the ambulance. So I'm thinking that would be another great thing that we could do. In fact, I don't even call them motorcycles. I call them murder cycles, because that's really what they are. They're assault murdering vehicles, and they are a menace. And we need to do some common sense laws to get this menace off the streets, because they are killing our young people and our old people and our people in general. And we just can't have it anymore.
But everybody that has a motorcycle can turn one in on a buyback program for a moped, right? We're exchanging for mopeds. We're going to allow mopeds, right?
Yes, but they're only
Yes.
going to be like 30cc engines,
Yeah,
and those can't get up to 5 miles an hour no
No.
matter how hard you push them. So
Well, they're not going to be mopeds, though. They're going to be motorized trikes.
Oh, okay.
Because
okay.
it's too dangerous just to have the two wheels. You got to have
two wheels. We
more.
have to go
Yes.
back to having
It has to have 4, because remember when they had the 3-wheelers and everybody would wreck them,
Yep.
so that they
No.
had to go to 4 because it was dangerous.
Amanda, nobody needs more
Now
than
you're
3
stepping on
wheels.
toes.
Nobody needs more
Well,
than 3
As,
wheels.
as long as we're doing this, can we finally once and for all get rid of them damn rollerblades? I mean, come on.
Now,
yeah,
back to the
Yeah.
motorcycle thing. I want to talk about the fact that you could make motorcycles safer, with the airbags. Have you seen that? This is actually a legitimate thing. There are motorcycles with airbags.
There are helmets that have airbags now.
Okay.
Wait, you could combine your earlier raw with you could wear that bubble suit as
With
a
the
safety-
motorcycle.
with the motorcycle.
Well, I worked for a company that played in technology, and we spent some time talking to the folks who were building airbags, and the airbag technology is exactly the same as hand grenade technology. It just has a plastic bag inside it, not shrapnel. So think about the fact that you're riding a motorcycle and you go to rack and, oh shit, now there's an explosion that's going to save you. So, and it's going to throw you off and throw you somewhere. So is that going to make it better or worse that you ride the explosion down, or that it happens on your face, or that it throws you?
Well, for one, you took all the fun out of the hand grenade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
an explosion that saves you. You're really confusing the rednecks now. You really are.
Yeah, I don't see
You're
how
confusing the guy in the bunker. He's looking
We're just
around and he's
confused.
like, "What? That's a real
us
technology?"
Nebraskans don't think like that. No.
And when I'm on my motorcycle, I've got 5 gallons of gas somewhere really tender, and an explosion. Yeah, you might have lost me.
Yeah, not so much here, but kind of down
Yes,
there.
yes.
Where it's where you just erupt into flames and
not here. Or
automatic
here so
Darwin
much.
award.
but right here.
Not that we're getting descriptive, but he's like groping.
Yeah, and just think south of the equator. For those of you that cannot see or are watching on or listening on audio only, yep, south of the equator. We'll leave it at that.
Hey, John, it's time for me to get down to my tidy whities, man. I got a boogie.
All right, Paul, before you go, where can people find you?
Go to saf.org. You can find all the daily bullets, all the weekly bullets. Come join me tomorrow, 12 noon Central Time, the only time zone that matters, Travis. And I'll be broadcasting the weekly bullet tomorrow. And Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time is the daily bullet. Catch up on all your 2A news.
And not this week, not the 11th, but Saturday, the 18th of December. Look for your favorite Get Off My Lawn podcast host to be part of the weekly bullet.
Yes. And I think I said tomorrow. I'm sorry, this Saturday, not tomorrow. Saturday at 12 noon Central Time.
Right. I knew what you meant, but thanks for the clarification. Okay. We will let Paul jump out. Amanda, are you jumping out too?
Yeah, I'm jumping out also.
Okay, where can people find you?
So Eye on the Target Radio, eyeonthetargetradio.com is our primary show, nationally syndicated and also available on OpsLens TV, so kind of a little bit of both. And then our new Friday show, Women for Gun Rights, that is in conjunction with the DC Project. And so it's a little bit of a little bit of guns and a little bit of advocacy a couple days a week.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight, Paul and Amanda both. I understand you got to go, so we'll just we'll keep the conversation going without you, but make sure when you get a chance that you catch up and catch the end of the show. And
Will
and
do.
Appreciate you being here.
So see ya, everybody.
Good night, Amanda.
And sorry, Rebecca, she comes, I leave. There's maybe she'll get a complex, not intended.
Don't worry. No offense taken.
A good host would have gotten her the link and she would have been here the whole time, but a 2-bit host would drop that ball and she would have to actually remind me that I never sent it to her.
Got it.
Well, at least you didn't blame the co-host.
No. It's not the co-host's fault. Rebecca Schmoy is in the house. 1 Million Moms Against Gun Control. How are you doing?
I am good. I just got dinner all done and put away, and I think that the boys are still alive, so everything's good.
Nothing's killed them yet. They're fine.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
Very cool. Glad to have you along. Better late than not at all. Fashionably late. We're just going to call you that. You're
right? Yeah, fashionably late. Thanks, John.
That's exactly what you are. So you've been following along. Have you been listening so far?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So we don't really have to fill you in. So we'll just give you the floor. What common sense laws would actually keep people safe?
Okay, so hear me out. This is common sense laws that will keep our children safe.
Okay, that's what we want.
Okay. Not allowing children in public places. Because one, it could be dangerous. They could come into contact with something that's dangerous out and about in the real world. Mm-hmm. Second of all, they're going to come into contact with people who have different ideas than their parents. And that's terrifying. You cannot have that. The children need to be sheltered and they need to be controlled. That is in its entirety. That's why we're all here, is to, further the mission of the human species. And we can't do that if we continue to put our children in danger by bringing them into public. And so I, for one, think that it would be a great idea if when we all went out to dinner, we didn't bring our children with us. They can stay at home and have dry cereal or, whatever is safe for them. Also, if you do have to transport your child in a vehicle of some sort, you should always make sure to have a chauffeur class between the driver and the children. That way, it's less dangerous for the driver and all of the other, important people on the road. So I don't know. I think it's fair to just not have children in our society today.
Wait a minute here. It's starting to sound like instead of keeping the children safe, You're a boy mom, and you're just trying to keep your sanity.
That might be a little bit of it, but if I keep my sanity, that in turn keeps others safe.
Oh, well, okay. Now it makes sense. Yes, I agree. And everything just came full circle. So
And
yes,
she just
I
now
can-
successfully said, if mama ain't happy, no one's happy.
that's right.
That might be true.
That makes sense to me. Mike, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that's beautiful. That's wonderful. I love Rebecca saying, but I'd like to put one exception in that law. I'd like to make it all right still to put them in a giant metal box with no seatbelts and send them away for 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
definitely no
safe.
seatbelts on the bus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's free daycare. I mean,
Yep.
aside from the fact that you pay taxes for it, but I mean, we're really not counting that because you don't see that money anyway. So
Even
it's
those
okay.
of us that,
Exactly
that
right.
don't have kids are paying for that daycare. So you take advantage of that every minute you can have them there. You
Yeah.
make sure they're in there. Don't be wasting my tax money.
Yeah.
Sick
And
or
I'm gonna
not, send them to school. We're good.
Okay,
Yeah, and I'm going to
speaking.
piggyback off what Rebecca said right there. And yes, we should send them away. They should be strapped in a metal box, and you should pay for it.
Yeah, I do.
There we go.
Yes,
We
you
all do. We all do, but I do. Yes. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. You got my tax dollars are 100% donation because I'm not using any of those school dollars on my own kids. You're welcome. So that's
Well,
just
I'm
free
going
money.
to give them a lot away.
In fact, we need to have more people that don't have kids that are paying for this stuff because there's so many people that just keep having kids and expecting everybody else to pay for it. So anyway, we'll talk about that a different night. Speaking of kids and state run taxpayer funded daycare, this one's going to take a turn a little bit more for the serious because this is actually something that should happen, and we all know it won't because there's been pushback anytime it's been mentioned. But Travis, I'm gonna want your expert opinion on this too, since you do actually work as an educator. But honestly, with all kidding aside, how about we actually protect our kids in schools? Let's put bars on the windows and doors so that people can't come in except for designated entrances, metal detectors in every school, and pat downs, armed guards in every hallway, whether they be actual agents of the state or we've got a ton of veterans that would volunteer and work for nothing and do this in every town. But why couldn't we actually lock down a school and protect it? And the reason that I say this is because we've all heard the safest place to be is inside a prison cell, right? Nothing can get to you. Nothing can get in or out. It's the safest you can get. You have to give up your freedom, granted, yes, but you're as safe as you can be. Everything's provided. And I mean, a hurricane can hit that building. It's not going to topple. So short of a major earthquake or something like that prison cell is the safest place you can be. People say, we don't want that for our kids. We don't want them to feel like they're prisoners. Why? Do you want them to feel safe? Because you complain about how when they go to school now, they don't feel safe, and you prey on people's emotions for that. And you try to get laws passed that don't actually keep them safe. So why don't we actually be proactive and just make it to where schools are a hardened target? And I know that schools are putting things into place. The what is it, Oxford in Michigan? Their school system have the locks at the bottom of the doors, and they're convinced that a lot of people's lives were saved in that building just because the classroom doors were able to be locked that way. So things are happening to harden schools a little bit. But honestly, why wouldn't, if we're going to waste trillions of dollars on some of the stupid crap that's in these latest spending bills, why not take some money? And people would actually be okay with giving a little bit more money, I think, if they saw that it went to a good thing, keeping the kids safe. They are our most precious commodity. Why do we never treat them that way? So I know I took this to a serious turn, but I really want to have this discussion. As an educator, Travis, you work in a school every day. So why is it that we complain when these things happen and we do nothing about it?
I don't know.
Okay,
maybe it's just red tape in the process where people can say whatever they want, but they can't get any change to happen. Also maybe if we had more parents involved in the school board process, members of the school board themselves, or petitions, or raising awareness, I think things would happen too. It's just, I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah.
Well, I know where if I can jump in, I know where the cause of the problem started, and that was in 1990 when Joe Biden introduced the Gun-Free School Zones Act as part of the Crime Control Act.
Yes.
It removed all firearms from school campuses. So since then, we've had almost twice the amount of school killings. So I don't know if I'd go as far as bars on the windows, but I would agree to have teachers or staff who were inclined and capable of carrying to carry. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense to bus kids into schools, keep them there 8 hours a day, remove all security, prevent good people, parents, from coming in with their concealed carries, and basically leaving all the teachers and students vulnerable, and then putting signs on the building that basically tell everyone that everyone inside is unarmed and defenseless. So none of this makes any sense, but they know that they attract killers when they do this sort of thing, and they use those numbers, the gun-related deaths and the school killings, to boost their gun control, get more support for gun control. The higher the numbers are, the more gun control support they get. So I would be inclined to say, let's start allowing and bringing people in that are trained, whether it's teachers or staff or whoever, and let's protect the kids.
Yeah, they need. Sorry, go ahead.
Dan, I hear what you say, and I know we've talked about it before. I could go this step further. I love the training. I love the idea of teaching the tactics and the defense to the teachers, but I don't understand why the teacher has to have the training to bring their firearm in if they're in a constitutional carry state or a state where they have their concealed weapons permit. They're allowed to have their 4 hours worth of training to protect their family at home or at the supermarket, but their daytime children, they're not allowed to protect it. If the teacher chooses to do so and understands the rules of school, then they should be allowed to take that in. Now going back another step further, we talked about some infrastructure items like putting bars on windows and doors, and why we haven't done that yet. One of the things I did in a former government life was critical infrastructure and threat assessments for years and years. And it really comes down to a money thing. We all know that we could be taking a lot of safety precautions in a lot of places, and corporations could be doing that, and the government could be doing that, but they'd rather take the chance and maybe just pay out the $1 million, $2 million when somebody gets killed, rather than spend the $100 million on the school infrastructure program. The last time we had a death in a school due to a fire was over 55 years ago in a public school from K through 12. That's because that was the same time, a few years before that, the feds passed a school fire protection act, and we had to put in fire hydrants near the school. You had to put hoses inside. You had to have fireproof walls. You had to have procedures. You had to have the thick walls. We could be doing the same thing now. It's not the same. It's not going to stop it completely. But if we built the infrastructure in these schools the same way, the doors with the one-way locks, the bulletproof windows on the doors, those walls are already thick enough to stop fire. A couple more layers of drywall would stop bullets as well. There's so many other things we could be doing, but the schools would rather wait and settle. Like, what did we just settle down in Parkland? A $20 million lawsuit. They would rather spend $20 million on the lawsuit than spend $150 million getting all those schools ready.
Absolutely. And ultimately, I want to bring everything, when we're done throwing out absurdities, I want to bring everything back to the real reason why. Well, there's two main reasons why some of this stuff doesn't get done. The first one is what we call acceptable risk. Why don't we limit every car to 30 miles an hour? Because it's inconvenient, right? I mean, nobody would be okay with such a thing. It would never fly because people are inconvenienced by having to go slow. We have speed limits of 60 miles an hour where people routinely drive 80 in a 60 when you're talking about rush hour traffic and all that, and you better keep up with traffic or you're going to cause an accident just by trying to avoid one. So it's inconvenient. People are in a hurry. They want to get where they're going and they want to get there quickly. We understand that driving 80 is a higher risk than driving 30. We weigh the risk. We deem it an acceptable risk. We go ahead and we do it, right? We know that driving in a car is more dangerous statistically than riding in an airplane, but so many people refuse to fly. They like to be, have the control of driving their own vehicle and being in charge, and so they accept the risk. They go on about their day knowing full well that there may be more risk involved, but they've deemed it acceptable and they're okay with it. Number one, it's convenience versus acceptable risk. That's one of the reasons why these things don't get done. Some of these don't get done because they're unconstitutional. A huge one, and hear me out on this one, because we all know that this really, if you think about this, it would prevent a lot of crime. If we would repeal the Fourth Amendment, we could reinstate stop and frisk nationwide. The cops could stop you at any given point and search your person, your vehicle, your home, any of that. People would get caught planning crimes more often. People would get caught with illegal items, contraband more often, to the point where it would become a deterrent and people wouldn't have those things on them anymore, right? Because they would know that the chance was too great that they would get caught with such a thing, and then they'd be punished. So that would prevent a lot of things. If people could be patted down and just stopped all the time by anybody whatsoever, by the cops at any point whatsoever, yeah, we would eliminate a lot of things before they ever had a chance to happen. Can we do it? The Constitution says we can't. I absolutely want the Fourth Amendment to stand, because I don't think that the government has any business patting me down or checking to see what's in my car or what's in my home unless they have already a reason to believe that I am either committing a crime or planning a crime. Right? That's how that works. That's why warrants are a necessity in order to do a search, unless they have reasonable cause to do it on site. We have determined time and again in courts across this land that stop and frisk is an infringement of your rights. To the point where, was it de Blasio that put it in place in New York City?
That's not true. That's not true.
Okay. Go for it.
Terry v. Ohio clearly says that stop and frisk is legal based on reasonable suspicion. And in New York, when Giuliani put it back in place, it was never stop and frisk. That's what the media hung on it. It's stop, question, and frisk. Stop, question, and frisk. And stop was based on reasonable suspicion. It was never stop without reasonable suspicion. It was always stop with reasonable suspicion, then question, then based on the questioning, if the suspect couldn't, or the subject, couldn't dispel your fears, then you have the authorization to frisk under Terry v. Ohio.
Okay. And I will I'll sit corrected. You make a great point. However, still it's with suspicion. Right? I mean, there still has to be reasonable suspicion. Yeah, you just can't go up and stop somebody willy-nilly. There has to be some sort of formulated reasonable suspicion beyond, it was my gut instinct. No, you have a real articulable reasonable suspicion. You can't stop somebody and then find the suspicion.
Absolutely
and
right.
Prove
Absolutely
that you were
correct.
right. That's still unconstitutional.
Absolutely correct. Yeah.
And it needs to be that way, because the American citizen needs to know that they have protections in this country that you can't be messed with unless you're committing a crime or you're planning a crime, or there is reasonable suspicion that you are committing or planning to commit a crime. And so without that, I mean, we get into Minority Report otherwise.
Right.
We get red flag laws, same thing, because again, you may be unstable, but that's not a crime in this country. being unstable is not a crime. And we all know the problems with red flag laws. If anybody out there doesn't know the problem with red flag laws, simply put, it's a way to take guns away. When you care enough about somebody to take away their guns and leave them with their knives and chainsaws and pills and car keys and everything else because you deem them to be a threat possibly to themselves or others. Now, you don't get any constitutional protections with the red flag law because no crime's been committed. You've not been accused of a crime. Court-appointed attorney's not available because you've not been accused of a crime. They do still come and take your stuff, but you've not committed a crime. So we already have methods in place. If somebody is suspected of being a danger to themselves or others, we can put them on a psych hold and find out if they really are a threat. We don't remove simply one tool. We remove the threat themselves because the tool is never the threat. It's always the person that uses the tool, right? We have that in place now, so we don't need another law. And a red flag law is just a polished up turd. It's another way to confiscate guns. Dan, what were you going to say?
Well, there are two right now that we're kind of keeping our eye on, and that's HR 2377 and HR 4350, I think. These are national red flag laws they're trying to pass. And the scary thing about the 2377, for instance, is the fact that just about anybody can accuse anybody else of being a risk to society. It goes down as far as a former roommate. So your former roommate can turn you in and fill out an affidavit, and it's an ex parte. It's ex parte, so you don't have any way of even stating your case until later on when you go to court. So yes, it's a lack of due process. It's very easy. They would be very easy to turn people in, and we know that they would be abused. So the red flag laws are probably the most dangerous thing that I see, and I know some of our gun organizations, our gun rights organizations, are fighting them right now. And but yeah, just to back up what you're saying, John, is the red flag laws are a big problem.
And anybody who's out there listening right now who is kind of maybe on the fence and you're not sure if you're actually against red flag laws or if maybe they have a place, let's turn them around a little bit, and let's say they don't take firearms away. Let's say they take car keys away. If the same law was available that said that it's been a long week, it's Friday evening, you've come home from work, you're done for the weekend, right? And you've got some steaks on the grill, you're sitting there on the porch, kicked back with a beer in your hand, feet are up, the police come up to you and say, Mr. Wass, we understand that you are drinking an adult beverage right now. We need your car keys. We need to take your car and impound it. It's coming with us. And you say, why would you be taking my car and my car keys? It's parked in my driveway. It's not even on the street. It's clearly not illegally parked. Why would you take it? Well, because you're having an adult beverage and there's a chance later on that you may drive while intoxicated.
Yeah.
But I'm not driving right now. Well, the fact remains that the potential is there. Therefore, we're not going to take you. We're not going to take your beer, but we are going to take your car. Yeah, if that was the red flag law, everybody would be up in arms, right? Again, inconvenienced. I can't get to work on Monday because you took my car. Nobody looks at a car the same way as they do a gun, where everybody thinks that transportation is a necessity.
Yeah, and here's the thing with that is that the red flag laws are they're trying to pass the red flag laws under the guise of mental health issues, and the problem is there's nothing in the bills they don't say anything about psychiatric help or having a psychiatrist or a psychologist as part of this process. So it's really not about mental. And besides that, there's a thing called the Baker Act statutes, which do allow people to be taken to facilities if they're insane. And so that way the person gets the help. But in this case, they use red flag laws under the guise of mental health, but they leave the supposedly mentally debilitated person in the house, and they just take the guns. So it's obvious that it's just a tactic to confiscate guns under the guise of mental health. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Every state has a form of Baker Act mental health. Every state out there,
Right.
and just like Dan said, it's not about getting help for the individual. It's about another way into the door to take the gun.
No, because and again, it goes back to obviously the threat is always the person, right? The most dangerous weapon in any room that you're in is you, right? Your mind. That's the weapon. A firearm or a sharp object or a blunt object. Those are tools. Those are tools that you can use to either hurt somebody or defend yourself, but they're not inherently good or bad, right? It's you and your actions and the way that you do things. That's what's good or bad. So if the person is the threat, then the threat is what needs to be removed from society. If you're not a threat to society, then again, it goes back to what we were just talking about with the Fourth Amendment. If you're not a threat to society and you've committed no crime, you need to be left alone. That's how this country was originally envisioned, is you do you, I'm a do me. And as long as you and I don't infringe on each other's rights, then the state has to stay away from us and let us be.
Right.
And that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. But anyway, yes.
Well, one of the things that I talk to my kids about whenever we have discussions like this about the stop and frisk and, whether you fully comply or what it looks like if you don't comply, or I'm sorry, officer, I don't answer questions, and then leave it at that, or anything as far as, because these are conversations that I have with my own kids. And I know not everybody has that, but it's been referred to in my house as everyday TSA. And so if you are boarding a plane, then you volunteer yourself to go through the check before you board the plane. And so you've paid your money. You have said, all right, this is a concession I'm willing to make. I'm going to go. I'm going to let them take my picture and assume the position and all of that. And there's a chance that they're going to go through my stuff. And I know that going into it. Mm-hmm. And when you start talking about Fourth Amendment and your rights as an American citizen to not be put in those situations, basically, I remind my kids that there is absolutely no excuse for the everyday TSA. If I am paying you money and I have said, and I've made the agreement with you that, okay, I'm going to allow these things in this circumstance, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. If you are stopped and you are put through something like that without just cause, without due process, whether it's
reasonable suspicion is what the courts have determined it. Reasonable suspicion.
So if you're put through something like that, that's a violation of your inherent rights. And so it's hard for me to understand how more people are not talking to their kids about it. We see all the time about what to do if you're stopped. But, if you're driving and then people say, okay, leave your hands 10 and 2 and make sure that you're talking to the officer and follow all of these XYZ rules. We don't have those conversations just in general with our kids as we're bringing them up. And since, unfortunately fortunately for my kids, this is something that I think about and I talk about on a daily basis. My kids know these things. So my kids are out there talking to your kids, to other kids, and they're saying, hey guys, the everyday TSA, that's not a thing. You don't get to just all of a sudden say, well, little Johnny here, today's the day that we're going to pat him down at school. Or little Sally over here, we're going to stop her because we heard a rumor that she might whatever. And so we're going to go check on that. You are not allowed to do that. And the fact that we're not teaching kids this just in everyday life and they're growing up to be adults that don't understand their rights is just, that blows my mind all the time.
It does.
Rebecca, I hear what you're saying, but some of those examples there, if somebody's going to school and says that somebody else might be angry and somebody might have brought something to school, well, that's reasonable suspicion. That's been legally defined as you can go have a conversation with them. In school is different as well, because you're allowed to. The courts have also determined you can go through their belongings and everything else. School, not that I agree with that. I think school should be the safe haven as well. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think you're right 99% of the time, but with what you said there, but there is, we're not giving up any protections if the law enforcement can articulate reasonable suspicion. That means to them a crime is afoot.
Involved. Yes. And parental, you have to contact the parent, whether the parent is
not
available.
In a public school. Not required. Not required.
Okay, so
if they think there's an immediate threat, they have to
go
into a locker or
saying.
backpack. They can't wait. Right. Yeah, or something in a car. Yeah.
Well, and we had a very similar situation to that at our local school, I think 2 years ago. It was the year before COVID. And they were able to take the kids out of the classroom, and then they actually left the backpack that had the firearm in it in the classroom until the police officers got there. But then it was a big kerfuffle with the superintendent at the time decided that she didn't want law enforcement to come into the school because that might be scary. So it was a big crazy mess. She's not here anymore, obviously.
Good for
you. The real is the video games for children play. I'm just saying.
Right. But basically what I was going for there is not that it's that there aren't laws in place that say that, yes, if there's immediate threat, then we need to address the immediate threat. It is more so of, the red flag laws. Girls, I'm sure all of you guys, when you were in middle school and high school, didn't have to deal with the cattiness of the girl cliques. But if
the mean girls,
yes, if they get together and they say, well, we don't like Sally today, so we're going to go to the teacher and say that Sally might have drugs on her person. Unfortunately for little Sally, she gets pulled out and
gets swatted.
Yes, and then she actually does have rights that you can't go in and make her remove articles of clothing to make sure that she doesn't have,
you're correct
things
there.
like that in place. You do have to have some kind of authority involved in that process. And during that process, as a parent, they'd better be contacting the parent.
Well, and you'd like that, and I agree. I'd like that too. But in the school, now you've described a crime, you've described drugs. All they have to do is involve law enforcement, articulate a reasonable suspicion, and it's okay. And now they can't search the kid's body. We know this. The school staff can't do that, but they can search the kid's belongings. And these are all Supreme Court cases, It's just,
right, and they can arrest the kid and take the kid to a detention center, and at that point in time, they are free to search the child's body.
You don't have to arrest a child to do that. You could be in class, and the superintendent could decide we're searching every locker, and they could do that in the school.
Oh yes, property, yes,
belongings, yes, but not their body.
But if the law enforcement comes and again. You give reasonable suspicion where they want to detain, then enough to detain, then they can search the individual. An officer does not need a parent's permission to conduct their job for safety and to find out if a crime has been committed. Then now we're not questioning the child, as far as did you commit the crime. It is I have a reasonable suspicion based on the statements given to me by the school and the other students that a crime has occurred. I'm going to investigate.
Right. I want to go back too real quick and revisit, Rebecca, what you had said here a little bit ago, where you're having these conversations with your kids and why aren't more parents having these conversations. I just want to point out real quick this little gem and how few people in this country actually know what it says, which is sad. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's not a big long read, guys. Even if you're not very good at reading, guess what? This was written in such a way that you don't have to be a lawyer to understand it. You might have to reread a couple paragraphs a few times. I do, but it wasn't made to where you have to have 6 volumes of different legalese Rosetta Stones to decipher it. It was written at the time in plain English. English obviously has evolved in 240 years time, but I mean, that's just it. People don't know what it says. And if you don't know what the Constitution says and you don't know the rights that you as an American have, then it's very easy to take them away because you didn't even know you had them to begin with. So you can't miss. They say, people in other countries, you can't miss what you never had. Well, equally, you can't miss what you didn't ever know you had at the same time either until it's too late.
Right.
So,
John, I love that you carry the Constitution on you. I keep a copy on me. It stays in my computer bag. And I love that, Rebecca, you talk to your kids about it all the time too. And it's super important that we're talking to that generation. We're talking to this under 20-year-old, whether it be 15, 14, whatever in school, because this is the generation of kids that have grown up with this extra layer of security post 9/11, and they're going to believe for the rest of their lives unless we teach them differently. No, we just had to give up a little bit of freedom for security to try to keep ourselves alive. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I'm just saying it occurred, and the children grew up under that. So we need to talk to them. Exactly what you're doing, Rebecca. And with that Constitution you have in your hand, John, is how we do it. Because if we don't, this is a generation that when they're 30 and 40 years old, going to believe it's okay and it's acceptable to give up, freedoms for security.
Yep. Real quick here, I want to put a couple comments up on the screen from some of my favorite other Johns. Crumpy's in the house. He gave us a $2 super chat tonight. Thank you for that, Crumpy. He says he never learned to read or write. You did a great job of typing, though, so at least you can type. That's all that matters. Or you've got voice to text. I don't know.
Voice to text, yeah.
With voice to text, you don't need to
Autocorrect.
be able to read or write. Text to speech and voice to text. Also out there, John Z, cool guy that I got to meet when a bunch of us met up in Tulsa. When was that? 2018, Travis? I think it was.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was.
That's right.
April of 2018 or something. Yeah.
He's got a couple great comments here. Everyone online is a self-professed medical, legal, constitutional expert nowadays. This is what makes the general public dangerous when it comes to the red flag. Hence the name itself, red flag. And he also said, Mike, when you were talking, reasonable suspicion can also be dangerous when it's misused, and it is misused. And that's
sure.
It doesn't matter what
shoe salesmen misuse their rights and privileges as well. So
yeah, it doesn't matter what we have in place. This is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Yep. The operative word is people, and people are fallible, right? I mean, there's always a chance for misuse and abuse. I mean, as citizens, we have a ton of power, right? I mean, not a lot of people realize it, but we have a ton of power, and citizens try to misuse that power regularly. Every time you see an episode of Cops or just a video from some rubberneckers or whatever of somebody getting arrested, and they're always saying, "You can't do this. I know my rights." Well, they're trying to use their power. They aren't very good at it. And anytime that I hear somebody say, "I know my rights," I assume that's code for I'm an idiot, but I want to let everybody know.
You cracked the code, John.
Right? I do know a thing or two about idiot code. I've been reading and speaking it for a long time.
Or it can also be code for I think I have rights that I don't have.
That's right.
I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
That's right.
There you go.
I read this one time, and it.
Yep, we've all been there.
But honestly, that's just it. Though is the only way that we combat a lot of this is with education, and people don't want to be educated. If there's not a Cliff's Notes or the movie version, then they don't care. We've dumbed everything down. We've dumbed learning down so much over the last 50 years that today people don't want to learn. They don't want to be taught how to think, which is why schools aren't. Travis, you are the exception. and I'm not meaning to step on toes, but as a rule, schools aren't teaching kids how to think these days. They're teaching them what to think, and that's okay because their parents want that too. They don't want to have to. Rebecca and any Pat, those of you, defense dad, those of you that have kids in school right now, again, I'm not meaning to step on your toes, but parents, as a rule, they don't want to actually have to put out effort and be involved when they've got that state-run daycare to take care of the kids, and once they get home, they've got SpongeBob or whatever kids are watching
Helicopter
these
parents.
days.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you just get to coast through, and you didn't have to learn the Constitution, so who cares if little Timmy has to learn the Constitution, and who cares if they're taking away our rights? Well, I care that parents as a whole are not doing their job. They're not raising their kids. They're not held responsible for the actions of their offspring, when ultimately it should come down to the parent. It should come down, number one, on the offspring, and number two, on the parent. And teachers should be a way down the list, unless that teacher was specifically filling their head with poison and instigating something. Aside from that, it ultimately comes back down to home life, right? We've all seen what home life has done over the last 50 years, deterioration of the family dynamic. And I'm not saying that every house has to have a mom and a dad who are married to each other. Of course, I'm not saying that. But we also see what happens in society when dads aren't there and there isn't anybody to fill that role, or mom's not there and there isn't anybody to fill that role. And so whether or not it's biological mom and biological dad, kids need men and women both in their lives to teach them what they need to know to be successful as adults. And if you're not going to teach them, they're going to learn it from somebody. It's just like sex ed. Would you rather the kid learn the right way from you? And even though it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, I know it's uncomfortable to have with my parents. I'm not a parent. I'm assuming it's equally uncomfortable to have with your child.
Yeah, try being a boy mom,
would you
guys.
rather suffer that hour of discomfort, or find out later that everything they know about sex they learned from somebody their own age and Pornhub? Because that's the alternative.
It is, yeah.
So
what was that thing you said? I don't.
No, Mike, and you. I have to say OnlyFans, then you'll know. Anyway, we're gonna try and keep this one out of the gutter as best we can tonight, guys.
Almost there, John. We're almost there.
Get it back out of the ditch.
It may be time to just wrap things up a little bit.
And this was the part of the show everyone decided that we all need Jesus.
Yeah. Right about then. Gizzard Gary's out there in the chat as well. And Gizzard, you make a great point. He didn't have to be taught in school what was right and wrong. His parents did that at home every day. Yeah, it's not the teacher's job to teach right from wrong. It's the teacher's job to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. And philosophy, maybe. Definitely civics. They're dropping that ball because the more of that they can gloss over and skip, then the easier it is to mold these impressionable minds. And maybe that's a tinfoil hat, but if anybody can prove me wrong, go for it, because we all see it. Anybody who's ever talked to somebody in school.
I'm with you.
So many parents out there are just they think they have to explain everything and give the background and everything. They're so afraid to just understand that sometimes the answer is because I effing said so, and just do it and parent their kid. It's to the point where, like, not to go off on a tangent, but there's this kid at my daughter's school that is a bully, and none of the teachers want to say anything about him, do anything about it. Because the kid's actually in a wheelchair, so nobody wants to reprimand the kid in the wheelchair. But this day in society, he's entitled and he gets to do whatever he wants to. So people just empower their kids to do the wrong thing. Sometimes they try to be their friends rather than their parents.
The worst thing that you can do to anybody with a disability, whether it's a physical disability or an emotional or a learning disability or a mental disability. The worst that you could possibly do is give them preferential treatment. Now, obviously, we have to make concessions for things like wheelchair ramps and things like that, right? I mean, that's just right. There need to be especially accessibility things. But if you raise that kid to think that somehow they've got a get out of jail free card because which I think demeans them. If you treat them like they're lesser and therefore need to be coddled, then they're going to go through life expecting that and having that sense of entitlement. When they get out into the real world, you've done them no favors because the real world could care less. The real world doesn't care. So I'm
not trying to pick on a kid in a wheelchair, but the kid picks on other kids, and the teachers literally have he's having some issues, and he's literally told the other kids in the class, just ignore him. We can't say anything,
which I think is wrong. That's what I'm getting at is I think I don't care if a kid's in a wheelchair or not. If a kid has when we're dealing with developmental and mental issues, again, if they're in the same classroom, then clearly they have the cognitive abilities to understand right from wrong. So we can't treat kids different. And I know that I'm probably making some people mad when they hear me say it, but just because your kid doesn't walk or talk or get around like other kids, it doesn't make any less of them, including the way that they're treated, and they should be treated fairly just like everybody else. That's really what I'm trying to say, including dealing with problems that they're causing.
Well, and the other thing too is, so this day and age, again, parents they coddle their kids and they don't prepare them emotionally for the life can be rough. Like, you don't hear sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Because the kids these days know how to make words hurt. I mean,
kids have always known how to make words hurt.
Well,
now they just leverage that into getting something for themselves. You see kids that are actively learning at a very young age. I taught preschool for a number of years, and I worked in an elementary school for 5 years. And you are seeing kids at a very young age learning how to manipulate other kids and adults. And it's just astounding to sit back and watch these things happen, because all of us as adults, we see that in our daily lives anyway, especially when we're talking about laws and different ways that people are trying to cushion and pad their approach to selling the laws. And so you're watching these children, elementary school age children, learn these lessons early. And it's terrifying to think about what they're going to be doing as far as manipulation of emotions once they hit adulthood. It's insane.
I was having a conversation with my wife about this topic, and I said, "What's the big deal about kids getting bullied? You know, I got bullied, and I bullied kids, and us guys, we'd after school go have a fight, you know, and that's the way we did that. And I was probably in a fight at least once a week, and that was just part of the routine. And then you'd make up with the person, you shake hands, and you go home. So I asked her, I said, what's the big deal about bullying in school? Why can't these kids today handle it the way we did? You get bullied, yeah, you deal with it and you go home. And she told me that it's different now because of social media and texting and all this stuff. She said that these kids now, the bullying doesn't stop. Apparently, it's all day long and all night, and they're constantly being bombarded. So it's something that I don't really understand because it's not the way I grew up.
It's more mental bullying,
right?
It's mental bullying, not physical.
The world, you know.
If you want,
Facebook and the whole world sees it, man. How are you gonna feel about that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's even worse than just the kids in your class, and you get de-panned in the locker room. But then they put that up on, whatever. I mean, I think it's even that's like that. That would be horrible as a young kid to have something like that happen. That's even worse than just something happening in the locker room,
And how those
And then they get
kids
sent
learn
to
how
your
to
family, get sent to their friends.
how those kids learn how to do it is a lot of parents have become Willy Wonka parents. No, don't stop. Like they just don't take initiative. They're like, oh, stop doing that. You gotta teach your kids right and from wrong, and you gotta scold them. You gotta take stuff away from you. I mean, you can't just let them walk all over. If they're doing it to you at school, at home, they're doing it to kids at school.
Exactly. I think some of the things that's wrong with today's parents nowadays is they're too afraid of what everybody else thinks. And back when I was a kid, if you got hauled out of the gymnasium running around acting like you're a freaking idiot while your sister's on the volleyball court and getting your ass spanked in the middle of the hallway, that's just the way it was.
Right.
Nowadays, parents are, and I'll use this in a metaphorical term, parents are afraid to lay the hammer down.
No, you're right.
Some of the problem.
Like I've got a family member and a coworker, both who have multiple kids, and they don't have the wherewithal to discipline their kids enough to even when dinner time. I have a sister-in-law with 3 kids, and when their kids were younger, she would make 3 different meals. I have a coworker who has 2 boys, and she makes 3 meals every night, one for her, one for one boy, and one for because she can't get them to eat the same thing. I mean, it's just
yeah,
like the Beauty and the Beast thing. Okay, then starve.
Yep. Going back to the social media thing, there was a TV movie on what was back then it was ABC Family, now it's Freeform, but that channel back in 2011 it starred Emily Osment. If you saw Hannah Montana, she was Hannah Montana's friend, the Forrest Gump Jr. kid's little sister in real life. Anyway, it's called Cyberbully. It's 2 words. 2011 TV movie. Look that up on IMDb. That movie will give you a glimpse if you're not familiar with how kids are on social media, and this was 10 years ago now, so it's only gotten worse with all the different platforms. But go watch Cyberbully if you want to get an insight into how these kids pick on each other, and because they're so starved for affirmation, kids cannot tear themselves away from social media. I'm 42 years old and I have trouble at times tearing myself away from social media. So put me back when I was 14 years old and actually really cared what people thought. I can't imagine, growing up with Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff like they have today. But that's a great movie for a little bit of an insight into what it's like in the online era. You don't get away from it, whether it's at home, whether it's in class. I mean, people are sending messages and snaps and whatnot all day long in school. They're not supposed to have their phone, but they do. And so yeah, it's incessant and it's constant bombardment. And what did I see the other day? The average person right now spends, 30% of their waking hours in a virtual realm of some sort, whether it's social media or gaming or whatever. But the next generation, they're expecting will spend about 60% of their waking hours in some sort of virtual realm.
Metaverse, man. It's on its way. It's coming.
Yeah, Ready Player One.
You're gonna sit down with the headset on as soon as you get home, and that's your day.
No, that's
or at work. That'll be your work. You'll put your headset on and go to work.
That's going to be everything, right? It's coming. Which we can let that work for us or against us. I don't think technology is inherently bad. I think that it does make, it makes for good times, which make for weak men. We know that. But it's not inherently bad. But that's just that it's so immersive and it's only getting more so. And so that's why we do this through technology, right? We don't all have to take a plane or drive somewhere and all get together to have this conversation. I mean, we're coming from all over the nation right now, and we're going out all over the world. So love technology.
Well, and to be fair to the kids, they are getting a terrible example from quite a few adults. Most parents are just as bad as bullies, and we're seeing that across the board. People have forgotten what it's like to stand face to face and have a conversation with one another because of things like social media. And there's a place for social media, obviously, but if you're not ever afraid of the repercussions of what you're going to say to someone because you're standing face to face with them, if you're feel free to say whatever you would like because it's through a screen, then what do we expect our kids to be learning? So it's, to be fair to the kids, they are learning it quite effectively from adults.
No, that's very true. Well, and look at even the ones that they're not seeing personal examples, in their personal life. We've got bullies right now. Tell me BLM's not a bully.
Right?
Tell me Antifa is not a group of bullies. I mean, they're thugs is what they are, flat out thugs. And BLM, you know what? Every life matters, including the black ones. Absolutely. BLM is an organization. When you see those quote unquote mostly peaceful protests or rallies, I mean, there's not that many black people in them. So I don't know what they're trying to prove there. But I mean, again, we've got riots, we've got looting, we've got vandalism and arson. That's intimidation. There's no other way around it. When we've got people saying, "Hey, if this verdict doesn't go the way we want, then your town's going to burn." Thank God for National Guard, right? So that didn't happen. But I think that was the only deterrent. Otherwise, I think Kenosha would have burned. I mean, the likes of which we didn't see a year and a half ago. So we've got the president of the United States bullying an 18-year-old young man, calling him things that aren't true, and being, I don't know if it was out loud or on social media, he's either being slanderous or libelous about it. So yeah, look at the examples that they're given. I mean, POTUS is if it's okay for him to do it and then go eat some chocolate chip ice cream, then why isn't it okay for everybody else to do it? So it's terrible. But again, it comes back to, yeah, you can get away with it because you're not face to face, and I'm so much cooler online. I'm so much tougher online. I can get away with and say whatever I want to online. So yeah, you're right. That's nuts. This has completely gone from a crazy laws or common sense laws into social media and bullying. But this is a great conversation. I'm glad it went where it did. So, but I think we are going to wrap things up. We're at 9:30, so we've been right at an hour and a half. So I think we're going to wrap things up. I will go around the horn, give all of you a chance for any final thoughts that you have been waiting to say and didn't get a chance to. And then we also want to know where people can find you. So last one in, we'll let you be the first one up. And that way we get to let the lady go first as well. It works out both ways. So Rebecca, any final thoughts and where can people find you?
Well, look at you and your manners. Nice job, John. You were raised right. I appreciate your mom.
I appreciate my mom. I wish she was here to hear you say that.
Okay. Rebecca Schmoy, and it's 1 Million Moms Against Gun Control. So on Facebook, I guess it's Rebecca Schmoy, 1MMAGC. And then I also work with the DC Project, and DC Project is an amazing organization where we are having real conversations with our elected officials and actually trying to explain to them why our rights matter to us so much as far as Second Amendment, as far as being able to protect ourselves and our loved ones. And so if you want to be part of that conversation, or if you want to know more about it at your state level, because we've got the federal level and the state level, then just look up dcproject.info.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much for being here. And I apologize for dropping the ball on your invite. But I'm glad that you were listening before you got in here. We'll just go we'll work our way up the screen. So Mike, we'll give you a chance to go next. Any final thoughts and where can people find you?
Quick final thoughts. I was just thinking, sitting here, what Dan was talking about, Rebecca talking about with the bullying and with the kids. I teach kind of a leadership academy at school with the kids, and I think the thing that strikes me just when you guys were talking about it, it strikes me as odd every time that these kids don't know how to make eye contact when having a conversation with the person standing in front of them because they're so used to the virtual world. And then just oddly enough, I've had to teach, middle schoolers and high schoolers how to shake hands. They've never shook another person's hand before. It's just never happened for them. It's always, a virtual sign off with a nod. So just kind of odd, just to add to that, the last part of that conversation with the difficulties we all face. I am Mike. I'm from Arms Room Radio. Check me out, armsroomradio.com, on the air every Saturday. 50 stations around the country. Do the rundown now, rundown.us with my partner, Craig. Guys, it's always great to see you. And Rebecca, it was a pleasure to virtually meet you tonight.
Thank you. You too.
All right, Mike, thanks for being here as well. Pat, we'll give you a chance to wrap things up. And where can people find you? Not where's the bunker. We know you're not going to disclose that.
No, not at all. Not at all. You can find me at Pat Hirsch on YouTube. I'm there, got some videos there, and hopefully have since I'm out of harvest and the cows are out on the stock fields, I will hopefully be putting up some videos here very rapidly. And to kind of land the plane here, so to speak, getting back to the common sense thing. It's hard to legislate common sense. It's hard to put common sense into law or anywhere else. It is something that is instilled in somebody from when they are very little to the time that they are adults. The common sense is just a thing that you can weigh out in your mind, whether right or wrong. It's the upbringing. It's everything around you.
Yeah.
And as long as you have something at least halfway decent inside of you, you will have good common sense. And I think in this country, especially right now with everything that's been going on the last year and a half, I think more people need to step up to the plate and instill more common sense into people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very clear that common sense isn't very.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here, Pat. And that's one of the biggest reasons why including common sense in law, I mean, common sense is so subjective, right? What makes sense to me may not make sense to any of you. And what makes sense to you, I might find completely absurd. And so anything couched in common sense, that immediately throws a red flag up for me in my mind. And I really want to read through it because, I mean, how sensible is this really? So, yeah, good point.
That's why it's so hard to put in the law or anything.
And that's why our Constitution was written to be objective, not subjective. And that was one of the reasons. So, all right. Travis.
Stop.
Final thoughts for you and anything that you want to add? And where can people find you?
Great discussion tonight. It was a lot of fun, just throwing out those absolutely absurd things that I'm surprised that these laws haven't been passed already, but they're a little too common sense, I think. Thank God.
Well, if AOC gets a chance to propose some of those, I hope nobody shares this with her.
Yes. You guys can find me over my YouTube channel, Travis P11, and I will be going live tomorrow or Saturday. Either I will or Artisan Tony's going to go live. Check my channel. We're giving away a Manus Laser Academy trading system.
Ooh.
Artisan Tony and I were working together on that. So if you go to my channel, watch my review, and post a comment on the video, then you get entered in the drawing, and that's it. And it's going to get sent to you from Tony. He's got the system ready to go. It's brand new, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So check it out on my channel. But thanks for the invite, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Glad we got your input on some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Dan, closing thoughts. Where can people find you?
Well, thanks for having me on the show. It was a lot of fun. And I have a web show called The Loaded Mic. Loaded Mic, MIC, like microphone, loadedmic.com. And it's primarily a Second Amendment, show, but we talk about politics of the day too. So it's a lot of fun. My co-host John Chiara, my son Danny Watts Jr. produces the show. So we have a blast with the show. So check that out. My book series is called Good Gun Bad Guy. You can find Good Gun Bad Guy at goodgunbadguy.com. It's a 3-book series. Working on book number 4. And I talk primarily about the anti-gun mindset, understanding the propaganda, understanding the rhetoric, understanding all the tactics that the anti-gun side uses to change the narrative and change how we think about guns in America. So exposing them, exposing the lies, and so we can better understand them so we can defeat them, because I have no interest in compromising with them.
No, absolutely. Good stuff. I haven't read those, but I need to. They're on
No
my list
compromise.
of things that I'm going to get, and then I'll get to one day. Hopefully. All right. Defense Dad, bring us home.
Well, so thanks for having me. What else? Hang on a second. I've been fighting him the whole show. I know we poked a lot of fun and made fun of these common sense, like fictional laws, but when it comes down to it, they use the word common sense for gun laws and everything. So we got to go out and fight those at the state level, at the local level, that sort of thing, so that some of these absurd laws don't get passed. Other than that, as far as where can you find me? YouTube primarily. I do a little bit of stuff on Instagram, and that's about it.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. You might have noticed at the top of the show, I did not introduce my beautiful bride in the producer's chair. She is not sitting in with me tonight, so I don't have the list, but I think I can do this because since we're not on Facebook for right now, I've got all the comments from the YouTube side. So I'm going to go back through, but those of you that are praying, folks, I want to ask for your prayers. This was Sandhills Sweetheart's first week back to work full-time hours. She's been back to work for a couple months. She went full-time hours this week. She made it almost a half a week before tragedy struck. She is down right now. She can't go to work. She's got a case of shingles, has decided to come visit. Very, very painful. So pray for some relief, and that clears up very quickly. Again, these are all things that probably wouldn't be a big issue if she had an immune system. I doubt she would have even had those flare up. But since her immune system's brand new, she's got her first round of baby shots. She was due yesterday or this week for some more, but they won't give them to her with those shingles being there. So she's ready for her 6-month baby shots, but she can't get them yet. But for those of you that aren't aware, she did go through a stem cell transplant in May. So her immune system's brand new, 6 months old. She is a newborn, and we try to treat her accordingly. Although, again, that doesn't mean that we completely wrap her up in a bubble and keep her in the house. She's been around people. We keep caution in mind, but I let her decide if she's going to take risks. It's her choice. She's not 6 months old. She really is a grown up. And so, but because of that, yeah, she gets exposed to some stuff. So, it's just her body has to work through some of this stuff, and it's a little tougher than all the rest. So please offer those prayers up. If you are a person who offers up prayers, we would appreciate it.
Best of luck, John.
Thanks. Out there in the chat. Again, if you weren't making comments, then we don't get to see you. We don't know you're there. So G23 was out there. Blitz was out there. Defense Dad doing double duty. Gunpowder Beauty was in the house. 2 Live Moo. Who else did we have? Pat Hirsch doing double duty. As we roll through these. Yeah, DJ Play Nice was in the chat out there. Rebecca was out there and in here. Idaho Rogers, USMC. Keith Umstead, Sandra Brooks, Tim Foley, Lily George, Patriot in the Dark. I see you. He only shows up because of Sandhills Sweetheart, and the last couple weeks she hasn't even been in the chat. So keep coming back. Lord willing, she'll be here next week. Gizzard Gary was out there. John Z, John Crump Live. I saw Ghost Tactical out there. Travis P11. Keith Gregory. As I scroll, they just keep coming. I think that might be Mike.
And
See
Mike.
you out there. So thanks everybody for joining us. We appreciate you. This doesn't work without you out there watching and listening. It's just a bunch of people having a conversation that doesn't go anywhere. Warsaw Patriots in the house too. So please, if you liked it, hit the like button. If you didn't, go ahead and hit the thumbs down. I don't care. It's still activity. Neither one helps or hurts worse than the other one. But please hit the share button. If you haven't subscribed, do so. If you're on Facebook, go find Sandhills Media on Facebook as well. But let everybody know that we're here and that we've got the best show that nobody's watching. And let's work on changing that. On behalf of Sandhills Sweetheart, on behalf of Amanda Suffolcool and Paul Lathrop, Rebecca, Mike, Pat, Travis, Dan, Defense Dad, and myself, thank you for joining us. Catch us next week, 8 o'clock Central Time, Thursday night. I don't remember what I have us down to talk about now, but you know what? I bet I can find it because I know I've got this figured out. I don't have anything. Next week might be, I want to have a talk about politics and religion and how we always hear don't talk about politics and religion. And guess what? You can't have a conversation with about now because nobody knows how to talk about it with anybody else, politics and religion. So I don't know if we'll get a whole night's worth, but we'll see. But I think that might be next week's topic. So we'll mention a few politics. We'll mention a few religion things and just kind of see where the night takes us. So catch us next week. Again, please share if you want to help support us. You can find us on Patreon, Sandhills Media as well. Go to blackswantactical.com and find the Sandhills collection over there. Buy some swag. Right now, it's still the old legacy stuff, but Crumpy and I, we are going to get together. I know it's going to happen. It might even be this year yet. We'll see. But we're going to get some new designs up there so that we've got some fresh stuff. So go check that out as well. blackswantactical.com. Go check out Self-Defense Radio Network, sdrn.us, and find everybody in this panel and go see what they're doing. Dan, I've been watching the Loaded Mic for several episodes this week, and I really like what you do. It's awesome. I've been catching the Rundown Mic. It's awesome too. Yeah, you guys are doing great stuff. If you're not aware of those shows, go find them. You'll be glad you did. All right, guys, it's time to go. We're going to wrap it up. We love you. God bless you, but it's time. Get off my lawn.